This video is for AQA Business Studies and it's looking at Unit 10, Lewin's force field analysis. So it's part of the A2 specification, but it does also tie into AS Unit 2, which is decision making, because this is a tool that is used for decision making. So if a business wants to bring about change of any sort, if they want to implement a new strategy and they have to carry out a decision, they may use Lewin's force field analysis to help to plan for that change, or as to whether they should go ahead with it or not. So, Lewin himself says, to bring about any change, the balance between the forces which maintain the social self-regulation at a given level has to be upset. So what he's arguing is that there's going to be forces for change, but there's also going to be resisting forces, so against this change. What you have to do as a company is you have to consider what these forces for change will be and what these resisting forces will be, and I suppose place weight on them to see which ones are more important and which ones, I suppose, are the driving force as to whether they should do it or not. So what the business will do is, first of all, a decision needs to be made. Now, how they carry out this decision, you can tie that back to Unit 2. Are they going to do it based on intuition? Are they going to do it based on more of a scientific approach? I would argue that Lewin's force field analysis is starting to be a little bit more scientific with its approach, because it's planning, again, as I've said before, the forces, but it's also placing data and placing weight on it. Now, where they get that data from, I suppose that kind of links to how scientific it is. If they've carried out the research, if they've really thought it through, if they've, for example, spoken to their employees about the change, to see what their, I suppose, the resisting factors might be, then this will make it much more worthwhile. If they've cut corners and they've done it just pretty much brainstorming in a boardroom, then again, it probably won't be as effective. But imagine this scenario. So the decision that needs to be made is to upgrade the factory with new manufacturing machinery and equipment. So there's lots of valid reasons for the change. So for example, customers want new products, and perhaps maybe the factory will allow that and facilitate for these new products and the product development. Again, it'll boost the production speed, increase in productivity, it'll reduce training time, and it'll lower the maintenance costs. Now, they've placed a weighted value on this. How they come up with this weighted value, again, it depends on the firm, it depends on the way they've collected this data, but it adds up to 10. So, for example, they might not be too concerned about the cost factors. Maybe their productivity levels are quite fast anyway, but what they are concerned is about customer demands and customer wants. But there's also forces against change. And these forces are a loss of staff overtime, staff fearful of new technology, the impact on the environment, the cost factor, and the disruption. So even though I've said before they might not be too concerned about the maintenance costs, the initial costs for this machinery might be a resisting factor. It does seem a lot of these resisting factors do relate to actually the labour force. So again, if you're I suppose installing new machinery and new equipment, there will be that fear of being replaced and becoming more capital intensive, and you can look at Cotton and Scherzlinger's video on the YouTube channel for that as well. But that seems to have a quite high value, and there seems to be more forces against the change. And again, if we add these weights up, we can see that the total is 11. So within this scenario, actually, there's more of a driving force against the change than for the change. So in this scenario, this company might just decide, okay, no, we're not going ahead with it. It's too risky. There's too many resisting factors.